Performance testing for beginners, part 2. What is performance testing? Performance testing is a non-functional testing technique that is performed to determine the system's parameters in terms of both responsiveness and stability under various workload conditions. Performance testing measures the quality attributes of the system such as scalability, reliability, and resource usage. Why performance testing is needed? Unlike functional testing, the goal of performance testing is not to find the bugs, but to eliminate the application's performance bottleneck. The primary focus of performance testing is to check a software program's speed, scalability, and stability. Determining the capacity of existing systems by checking how much load the application can handle with the current infrastructure. Creating benchmarks for future system for finding out what is the current responsiveness of the application and use that as a benchmark for future application releases. In total, we have 8 types of web performance tests. They are baseline test, capacity test, component test, smoke test, load test, stress test, soak test, which is also known as endurance test, and finally spike test. Now, let us see what does each of these tests mean and when do we actually use them. What is baseline test and when to use it? A baseline test is the quality assurance process of running a set of tests to capture the application performance in its original state. That is, once the application is given to us for testing, we would run the baseline test to measure its current response or performance. These tests come handy when we do not have any response time agreement mentioned by the client or the stakeholders. They also become handy to compare the current application performance with the upcoming application releases. These tests help the performance testers in identifying the problem at an early stage. This will in turn give the developers a lot of time in fixing the issues before the actual performance testing starts. What is capacity test and when to use it? A capacity test is the test done to determine how many users that our application can handle before its performance or stability becomes unacceptable. This test will help us know the number of users that our application can handle successfully, and we will have a better visibility into events that might push our site beyond its limitations. These tests are very much needed for avoiding the potential performance bottlenecks in the future. What is component test and when do we use it? Testing a discrete component of our application requires a component test. For example, a chart feature, an email functionality, a file upload, a search functionality, or any third-party component like a shopping cart. Testing the component individually is very critical for application where the component is like the soul of the application. What is smoke test and when do we use it? A smoke test is a test that is run under very less load that merely shows the application works as expected. It is usually done with 5 to 10 users and is run before triggering the actual load tests in order to see if our scripts are working fine and that there is no scripting issue or to ensure that the application is up and running. So by doing this smoke test, we can avoid any script or application related errors during the actual test run. What is load test and when do we use it? A load test consists of applying load to an application to measure the results. These tests may or may not be done at the system's maximum capacity. These tests can help determine the normal performance metrics. Additionally, by using the iterative testing, we can determine if the new code had helped or hurt the performance. For example, consider the response time of your application was 4 seconds with version 1, and when you have version 2 in place which is ready to go to production, and you have identified the response time to be 6 seconds. So this is a bad performance. So you take necessary actions to rectify that to either 4 seconds or bring it down further under 3 seconds, depending on your business needs. What is stress test and when do we use it? In stress test, we try to push the application beyond the normal load conditions. Under these extreme conditions, we can see that the components failing first and ultimately brings down the application. So after knowing those components that have failed, we can make them more robust and efficient and will help in determining the new thresholds of the application. What is soak test and when do we use it? As mentioned earlier, the soak test is also known as an endurance test. It is the long-running test that is used to determine the application's performance or its stability over time. Usually, these tests are run anywhere between 8 hours to 1 week duration and actually depends on the client's requirement. This test is very much important for those applications that are planned to run for all 24 hours in a day. For example, banking applications. The reason for running these tests is because an application may work well for an hour or two and then start to experience issues. So these tests are especially useful when trying to track down memory leaks or corruption of the system. What is spike test and when do we use it? Spike tests are usually done for identifying the application's reaction time to sudden large spikes in the load generated by the users. For example, take the flash sale of a newly launched mobile phone by any major e-commerce store. Can you imagine how many users try to get the product at the specified time? I will quote an example of OnePlus phone here. One of the major e-commerce websites announced that the sale of the phone is at a specified time, and within 2 minutes all the OnePlus phones were sold out. An estimation of sales were around 1 million copies. So we have 0.50 million users per minute accessing the application trying to get their hands on the new phone. This was only the number of users who were lucky to get this phone. There may be 3 times more users who tried to purchase the product. So using the spike test, we as a performance testers like to see what happens to the application when this additional load of users try to access it. Will it be able to withstand the user load or would it crash?